Welcome into your Friday episode of RFK Refugees Podcast. You have your host here, John. Ted is off on assignment. I could talk to you about the Red Bulls DC United game from Wednesday, but I don't want to do that. It's my birthday weekend. I'm not trying to bum myself out any more than I have to. So if you want to hear us talk about that, Monday night, 8:30, as always, and then we'll get real sad together. But we're not going to get sad today. We're going to talk about something exciting and new here, something that was released, I think, maybe yesterday, earlier this week. The Washington Spirit have a radio deal for the first time ever, and I have with me all of the folks who are going to make up that team, and we'll talk to them about how this came about, what it's going to be like, and where you can find them as they broadcast the Spirit games, and then a little shoulder content too. So with me, I have Bram Weinstein, Mike Minnich, and Gabby Vincent. Hi, everybody. How you guys doing?
Doing well. Great to be here.
Thank you very much. All right, so let's get right into this thing. This is a first. The Spirit have never had a local radio deal before, and now they will. When did this process sort of come about? When did you guys hear that this was something that both the team was looking for and maybe your radio station ESPN 630 were looking to do?
We started talking about this months ago, really. And it didn't really finally come together until the last couple of months, but there was mutual interest with the station and with the team. I think there are not many teams in the league that have this. I think it's going to change soon. It's just another kind of signpost of the state of the league, where it is, interest in it, explosion, women's sports, the brand of the Spirit in the area. You see that with the move to Audi Field a couple of years ago, with the attendance boom, the television contracts that have come by way of women's soccer here in the last year. And I think it's just another sign of growth of the league. So I think it's just a natural progression, and I'm personally excited to be part of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of local sports fans, all of you are familiar. A lot of sports fans who have their AM dials turned on and listen to Commanders games, or just are around for the sports talk universe, are very familiar with you, Bram, and also everyone else here on the line. Gabby, this is a really cool opportunity for you. I assume is this your first time doing broadcasting of any sort? Have you had experience at other levels?
No, this is completely brand new to me. But Bram and Michael and Luke with the Spirit have been really helpful in, making this new opportunity something that's attainable for me, helping me a lot, connecting me with people who have experience, so I can just pick their brains on tips. But yeah, this is a new opportunity for me, but I'm excited. I think I'm capable of doing it, and I got to get my reps in. I got to get more comfortable doing it, and I think it's going to be great.
Have you been watching games this season and just having, providing valuable player asides to people, whoever you're watching with? Like, well, when I played. How's the practice process been? Obviously, this kicks off for you guys. First game is this Saturday, May 18th against Angel City. But what's been the process, the run up to this, like for all of you?
Yeah, I can start. I have been practicing in a way that I haven't practiced before. Watching, I watch a lot of games, but when I was a player, I watched as a player, and when I was a fan, I watched as a fan, and now I feel like I watch the game differently as a commentator, as providing the analysis. So I talk to my cat a lot. I tell my cat what's going on in the game, and make sure that I'm learning how to communicate what I'm seeing, because I'm used to just watching or just like saying things here and there to my friends, but having to talk for the entirety of the game and provide, what my brain is doing, and being able to communicate that with the audience is definitely taken a lot of practice.
I'm probably on the software to watch a game with, because I am doing that. I'm saying, hey, these two play together in college. Now they're going against each other. Or, hey, this player scored 10 goals for the U.S. last year. Like I'm doing this stuff all the time. I just can't stop my brain from doing that.
It is funny that basically the trait that everyone would be super annoyed with is in fact a marketable and employable trait when you're watching. That is the whole value of a color commentator or an announcer, to be able to really know all those nuggets. And Michael, you have for folks that maybe are new to the team and weren't around for the either previous incarnations or just the past, you were the first television announcer for the Spirit back in the pre-Spirit days, for the Freedom days. Is that right?
Yes, thank God their skills are marketable. I'd be out of a job completely doing anything. Yes, so I did the Freedom the second year. I was a stat person the first year they were in existence. The second year I broadcast with Sebastian Salazar, who's gone on to great things at ESPN and elsewhere. Sebi was my partner that year. And then when the Spirit came back, I reached out and said, I'd love to do this again. At that point, every team was broadcasting their games locally on YouTube where everybody could see them, but producing them locally. So I did that for 4 years. And then when they moved the operations to a central location in Florida, I would fly down a couple times a year, call not just Spirit games, but games around the league. And now it feels like it's really come full circle for me where I'm back in my local market broadcasting the team that I've followed and covered since they were started. It's a great thing.
And I'm happy for you and for everyone else that you're going to be broadcasting from Audi Field instead of either Boyd's or RFK or whatever media box you were previously doing the games. Are you guys going to be live, or are you guys going to be doing in studio? What's the setup so far that you?
We'll be live at Audi Field for all the home matches. We're doing 13 matches currently, and then hopefully, if the team's in the playoffs, we'll call their playoff matches as well. But the road games are going to be interesting. We're going to test. This is our year one doing this, so we're going to test a couple different ways. We'll do a couple road games from monitors here locally in Washington, and we may travel to a regionally close road opponent. That hasn't been determined yet, so we may do a road game in person, but we're not totally sure. But all the home games will be at Audi Field.
It will be cool. I'm normally in the press box. It'll be cool to finally have somebody in that radio booth that then is normally empty when we walk by it. So it'll be so it's a great change. I think, fans are going to be excited. It's having multiple ways to follow along. And I think I've always felt what's missing from both the MLS and NWSL sort of centralized broadcasting where the announcers are moving from region to region each week. Some people complain about like homerism, but then other people are like, boy, it would be great to have people that watch this team every week that know the ins and the outs and that can talk about the sort of the specifics that people who are, who join the midweek coach call on Tuesday and maybe make it out to practice, but usually not, and then do the game on Saturday. They have a different sort of viewpoint. So are you guys excited to be able to have that, not necessarily homer feel, but hometown really tight understanding of the players and the relationships on and off the field as you broadcast?
Yeah, I think it's important for the team to have it. We want to, be kind of the historic markers for the team, and you need a home call. Like when Apple ended up getting all of the MLS matches, you lost Dave Johnson as the voice of DC United. I think it's great that he is back on radio now calling it for the team, but there is something lost when you don't have a hometown call, especially for key moments in the team's history. And hopefully, this will be a value to the team, a value to the fans to have a group that, of course we want them to win. Like, of course we're biased. I don't actually think there's anything wrong with that as long as you're telling a true, honest story and a true, honest telling of what's happening.
I think what's really great about the fact that you're on ESPN 630. We've got familiar names here, familiar voices that are going to be doing this. I think that as a soccer fan in the area, it's always been a challenge and a struggle to sort of contextualize your place within the market, right? I think if anybody who's listened to sports radio in the region I'm almost 40, I've been listening to it for almost 30 years, what the lead story is going to be typically. And it's always been it's always been a big challenge to see where soccer fits in, right? What people call in about is what it talks about, at least on sports talk radio. But I think it's really important to soccer fans to have a place where soccer is talked about. You're also going to have, as I mentioned sort of previously, the shoulder content. You guys are also going to have a podcast every week called the Spirit Spotlight that will be able to tell some stories, do some interviews. How important is it, do you think, from a soccer fan and the DMV's perspective, to have this home for women's soccer on sort of an institution of local sports radio?
Gabby, you want to answer that, or you want me to answer it?
Yes. So I think it's really important, to have a one-stop shop for everything, that you can go there for the game. You can go there for podcasts. You can go there for interviews. I think that makes it a lot easier on the fan to know that they have that. And also to know that someone cares about their sport and cares about their team, I think is really important to know that there's backing for this. It's not just a couple of people going to Audi Field. It's a organization around it that is supporting this team and promoting this team.
I agree. And I think this area, the DMV, is like such a hub for soccer, especially for women's soccer, that I think it's really going to just create that community. You can go to a game, you can watch the game, you can listen to the game, and there's a bunch of different ways that you can be involved. That's just going to keep building that Washington Spirit brand within this area, and I think and globally, honestly. So I think it's just another piece to the puzzle to keep creating that you can access women's sports, you can access women's soccer from just about anywhere.
The audience tells you what they want. So, oftentimes, I know you're not criticizing sports radio landscape here, but to your point about it, which is obviously it's very Commanders heavy, and then it falls from there, probably dependent on what's happening in the area. But like the draft is going to usurp all of this attention for 2 months when other teams are literally playing. And so, like, trust me, we get your point. But the ratings, the clicks, what the Washington Post covers, I mean, the metrics just warrant you give the audience what they want. However, and this was a story that was told, my producer of my radio show on ESPN 630, Mike Callow, who's a huge Spirit fan and was a big part of he's going to be the executive producer in the booth, and was a big part of really wanting the station to own this. He played a big role in this. He told a story on the air the other day where he said when he was back at 980, and he and his one of the former hosts here, Tim Murray, had a show once, and they had Ali Krieger come in for an hour, right? And you don't hear a lot of soccer guests get on local sports radio. And after it was over, they uploaded it, because as we do with everything, put it into a podcast, and it was the most downloaded podcast they'd had that year. And he said this was the moment when he realized that not only does he think this is cool or that this is important, but there actually is demand for this. I learned about this through the years with the Capitals. I'm a big Washington sports fan in general, but I'm a big Capitals fan too. And I was always like, I want to talk about the Capitals more on my show, because I just like them. I think they're important, and they're a big part of our community. And everybody would just tell me, well, they only have this amount of fans, and there's only this many people that actually care. And it's the same group that goes to every game, and they don't really actually cast a wide net. And then they went on a cup run, and the city was overrun. So I think sometimes we're wrong about demand. And in a digital era, what we can prove out is that the demand is actually very high. But the audience needs to prove that out too. So when we put these podcasts out, when you put your podcast out, when the Spirit puts out their stuff, when we do this broadcast, the audience is going to tell you actually how many people actually want this. But to your larger point, I think it's a larger group of people than some of the traditional media realize.
Yeah, it's always felt like a chicken or the egg situation for me too. To your point, the ratings and metrics dictate sort of what you cover, but it's always what can be offered first to let people know that A, this is out there, and B, it matters. To that point, you're going to be broadcasting the podcast live on the air on Fridays at 3:40. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, and today, if people hear this on Friday and you get this out before then,
they will.
General Manager Mark Krikorian is the guest today.
Great. Awesome. A very important and timely, I think, Mark is an interesting character this year. There was a lot of people very angry at him at the beginning of the year, and there's a lot of people now that are finding themselves in a sorry, I was wrong, Mark perspective. And I certainly wouldn't know anyone like that. I wouldn't know any podcasters that potentially have been on the record in that way. But anyway, I think this is a really, really exciting thing for Spirit fans. There's, the more Spirit content, the better. There's very few of us out here covering the team on a weekly basis. So I think this is going to be really beneficial for the fan base. Just to wrap this thing up, for folks who want to be doing this and want, so is there an opportunity to, there's no sync yet. You'd have to manually set up here. So if you want to watch the game and then you turn on ESPN 630, I guess, on your app, is that sort of on your phone or however else you're listening?
You could listen to it, obviously, on AM radio, or it will stream and through WashingtonSpirit.com and all of their streaming platforms. So you will be able to do it. The sync issue is an interesting one. I'll find out with you in real time.
Right. I think that's a thing we'll figure out over time. I think Dave Johnson, when he's doing it, tells like the time here at the game is this. So pause and get it. It's a fascinating challenge that we all find ourselves in the option of the digital universe, but it's great. So everybody, make sure you're listening to that. I think you could also do this is like my move. This is when I'm older, when I'm a retiree at baseball games and I've got the headphones in listening to I'm going to be that guy. Not yet, but in the future, you can always listen while you're watching so you can get a little more color and information as you're watching the game. Mike, Bram, Gabby, thank you so much for joining. I think this is a really awesome thing for Spirit fans, and I'm sure people will be tuned in and also listen to your podcast too.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah,
For everyone else, yeah, of course. Thanks for everyone else. Monday live show at typical 7:30. We'll have a lot to talk about. We'll have 2 DC United games to talk about, one of which I want to forget, and the other one's against Inter Miami, and I just got a notification while we were talking that Messi is available, so that's going to be a really fun show. Make sure you turn into that. It's going to be fantastic. Hopefully the Spirit will provide the one little glimmer of happiness for us on the weekend. Until then, we'll talk to you on Monday night at 8:30. Vamos. Thank you for listening to RFK Refugees Podcast. Make sure you rate and review the show wherever you download podcasts. If you want to support the show, consider joining our Patreon or subscribing to our channel on Twitch. Lastly, make sure you're following us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Threads, YouTube, Twitch, Goals.tv, Friendster, MySpace, and Tumblr. Some of those are even real. Vamos.